Today on PCZ TV, we'll cover the history of hot dog on a stick and its South Bay connections.
PCZ TV.
As you know by now, SoCal is the home of fast food. And, as previously seen on PCZ TV, I covered the extensive Southern California history of fast food in this video. So feel free to go back and watch. Or if you just want the fast history of fast food, this video has the Cliff Note version. And I'm going to assume that we're all caught up on the history of fast food, so let's turn our attention to the history of the corn dog. History is murky here. We start with a wave of German immigrants in Texas in the 1840s or so, who were sausage makers, and found that the locals weren't familiar with this style of food. Bratwurst, how new and exotic. So the immigrants simply did to sausages what they did to Wiener Schnitzel. No, not that Wiener Schnitzel, that's a hot dog. I meant the authentic German dish of Wiener Schnitzel, and they dipped the sausages in batter and ultimately created the corn dog, much to the delight of children everywhere and of stores. Well, wait, no, not actually, because at this time it was not a cornbread covering, it was self-rising flour. And it's not clear the type of sausages they were using as, well, yes, Germany has more than one sausage. In fact, they have about 1,500 or so varieties of sausage. So now we need to dive into the equally murky history of the hot dog. The hot dog was initially known as a Frankfurter, which, as the name implies, comes from Frankfurt, Germany, where pork sausages similar to hot dogs originated. These sausages date back as far as the 13th century and were given to the people at imperial coronations. And let that sink in for a moment. Oh, Your Majesty, here, have a hot dog. Note that these were sold typically with buns on the side. So, how did the hot dog get its current form? Well, theory number one. A German immigrant named Feuchtwanger from Frankfurt allegedly pioneered the practice in the American Midwest. Feuchtwanger sold hot dogs on the streets of St. Louis, Missouri, and provided gloves to his customers so that they could handle the sausages without burning their hands. Losing money when customers did not return the glove, his wife suggested serving the sausages in a roll instead. In another version, Feuchtwanger served sausage rolls at the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. Or was Feuchtwanger at the 1893 World's Exposition in Chicago, using buns because, again, the gloves provided to customers to protect their hands were being kept as souvenirs? Or was it pie man Charles Feltman at Coney Island in New York in 1867, where he had a cart with a stove on which to boil the sausages and a compartment to keep buns in which they were served fresh? In 1871, he built a restaurant and sold Coney Island Red Hots, as hot dogs were then known. Or was it Harry Stevens, an Englishman who moved to Ohio in 1880? He had secured the contract to supply refreshments at several major league ballparks across the U.S., and he decided his stalls needed a snack. Being aware of the popular Dachshund sausages sold in nearby shops, he ordered his staff to buy as many as possible, cook them in water, and serve them in a bread roll. So, which one is right? I don't know. You decide. And tell me in the comments below. And the story so far. Well, we know the Germans came to Texas in the mid-1800s, bringing sausages and then dipping them in batter to cook. And we know that around the turn of the century, Americans were consuming hot dogs. So naturally, the next key logical step in the development of the corn dog was automation. What? As manually dipping the dogs into batter was apparently too time-consuming for Americans, Americans being Americans, developed a machine to mass produce them, and a U.S. patent filed in 1927 and granted in 1929 for a combined dipping, cooking, and article-holding apparatus describes batter-covered dogs, among other fried food, impaled on a stick or rod. Note that at this time, this is still a flour-based batter. So we're not quite there yet for the final ingredient, cornmeal, which means more history. The short form. Okay, cornmeal is nothing new. The indigenous tribes were using it forever. And it's only natural that the settlers adopted it. So the question remains, when was cornbread batter adopted for the hot dog? Oh, and surprise, there is no consensus on this either. Let's look at the two competing claims. Carl and Neil Fletcher claim to have introduced their corny dogs at the State Fair of Texas sometime between 1938 and 1942. Pronto Pup, Rockaway Beach, Oregon, claims to have invented the corn dog in 1939. But they use a batter made with flour, so it's similar to a corn dog, and while they may market it as the original corn dog, it is not a corn dog. Well, given the German population of Texas, have you been to the State Fair of Texas? They deep fry everything. I personally tend to believe that the Texas claim is stronger. But what do you think? Do you believe the Texas-German connection? And, surprise, another debate, this time about the stick.
Is it behind door number 1, or door number 2, or door number 3?
Door number 1 is the patent mentioned previously. I don't know, it sort of looks like a stick is prominently mentioned to me. Door number 2, the Cozy Dog Drive-In in Springfield, Illinois, claims to have been the first to serve corn dogs on sticks in 1946. Door number 3, also in 1946, Dave Barham opened the first location of hot dog on a stick at Muscle Beach in Santa Monica, California. Most popular history gives the nod to Dave and his hot dog on a stick. Okay, so now we're all caught up. So let's dive into hot dog on a stick and its South Bay connections. As I mentioned, in 1946, Dave Barham opened a fast food stand called Party Puffs on Muscle Beach next to the Santa Monica Pier. It was a small, bright, red, barn-like building that served ice cream cones and lemonade. Using his mother's cornbread recipe, Dave worked on creating a corn dog to sell, and essentially, seeing that the popularity of the corn dog exceeded all his other menu items, he changed his name to the very original hot dog on a stick. Now, not unlike Taco Bell, whose first franchise store was in Torrance, and see this video for those details, the first store outside of Santa Monica was the Redondo Pier location, which opened in 1962. Now, Barham and Bud Wright had previously worked together at Northrop in Hawthorne until the former decided to leave and open the now famous restaurant. Bud's son, Craig, got a job working for Barham in Santa Monica's hot dog on a stick location. Now, in 1979, Barham was looking to open a location at the Lelmo Fashion Center and wanted to relieve himself of the ones in the Redondo Pier and the Old Town Mall in Torrance. Now, unlike typical franchise agreements, Craig Wright bought the Redondo and Torrance restaurants from Barham directly, with the caveat that the latter never sell the rights to that spot, and the store has been operating here since 1962. And that's why Craig's Hot Dog on a Stick is the only independently owned store, hence Craig's first name at the beginning of Hot Dog on a Stick. Oh, one simply cannot talk about this chain without talking about the uniforms. Now, during the early days of Hot Dog on a Stick, they were apparently polka dots, and I think this modern photo is a recreation of the design, but I can't be sure. Eventually, they changed to the famous, in quotes, designs that they have more or less kept even to today. The design concept is red, white, and blue with a splash of lemonade. Then, the now update. Well, Global Franchise Group acquired Hot Dog on a Stick in 2014 after the original company declared bankruptcy. And then they, in turn, were acquired in 2021 by Fat Brands, the owners of Fat Burger and Johnny Rockets, etc. Hot Dog on a Stick has around 70 stores in 7 states. In 2022, the original building in Santa Monica was razed for new construction, but a brand new, similarly themed building was built to keep the image alive. Note, these images are from the web because I'm not going to drive up to Santa Monica. And in 2024, Craig's Hot Dog on a Stick, the very second store and icon on the Redondo Beach Pier, will close the first week of September. Alas, this is the end of the South Bay era, but all good things come to an end. If you've been watching this far, I thank you. Bye!